Hi, I'm the Giz, and I'm here for another version of Tale of the Grape. I like that name. We also been playing around with Institute, Insta-Wine-Toot, Wine-Toot, Wine Institute. Let us know which one you like, or if you can come up with one of your own, write it on the memo. What I want to talk about today is how the grape spread from Europe throughout the world. And it was basically in the 1840s, 1850s, the Industrial Revolution, the Black Plague, the famines, the political and religious burdens of the Europeans. They spread. They spread out from Europe, and when they left, they brought their lambs, their children, their grapes, their tomatoes, seeds, and traditions with them. So those that hit California planted their vines there. Those that hit Virginia planted their vines there. Same with New York, same with Oklahoma, wherever. Also, South Africa, India, Australia, South America is totally planted with vine. As I travel the world to all these parts, I noticed one thing in common. People who grow grape, who make wine, are the most fantastic people in the world. They're natural, they're moral, they love life, and they want to pass that love on to you. And how do they do that? We all know wine is nothing but sunlight filtered through water. And they like to bring that to you. So anyway, as this exodus happened, people brought their traditions and their grape varieties with them. Fast forward, California, 1920s, Prohibition. Religious wine was allowed. You had to have a special permit. Of course, everybody was religious back then. And this is when the Gallo brothers first started. And people kind of chuckle at the Gallo, but they really did so much for the wine industry in this country. They started co-oping. In the beginning, they actually purchased some equipment so that grape growers could come and make their own wine, and then go out and sell it and do what they needed to do, imbibe themselves, neighborhood, whatnot. But the Gallos took wine, and in some cases took property or took vine contracts for the payment of that equipment usage. In time, they saw the future, what was going to happen in this country. They foresaw, and they realized that the more property they could accumulate, the better they would, the better position they would be in to set up their family and grow with the times. Gallo's a phenomenal wine family or corporation. One thing, every other corporation in this country and around the world goes after wine, the employees of the Gallo company, because they're taught so well on all the rules and points and ways of selling, managing, and whatnot. That's the business side. On the grape side, they continued this share the knowledge, share the equipment throughout the industry. It wasn't dog eat dog. They believed in help thy neighbor, and thy neighbor will help you. Fast forwarding a little bit, in the 1960s, actually in the 40s, when the World War was going on, Americans were off in Europe and off in other parts of the world, and they learned a little bit more about wine. Instead of just liquor, instead of just beer, they learned about wine drinking. They brought that education home with them. They couldn't find the right wines immediately unless they lived in a city area, an area where there was colleges, universities, and educated people that had people from around the world in their vicinity who demanded wines from around the world. But slowly, and people say the hippie generation, the pot-smoking young folks who started with the Annie Green Springs, the Berry Frosts, the Boone's Farm, and then They graduated to the Riunitis, the Liebfraumolks, the Asti Spumantes. So the pot-smoking hippies of the 1960s brought about this wide burst of consumption. With the sweeter wines to begin with, they graduated through, and then white Zinfandel became popular. I'll tell you the story on Zinfandels later. It's a very interesting one. And as a lot of executives who made big chunks of money from other areas of business, they divested, went to California, bought land, bought wineries, bought property, and started making wine. They knew nothing about it. Some of the finest wines and the finest winemakers are now those people. And there are people even today that are starting out in the wine business. They start working in wine shops. They travel, find a great wine in Italy or Argentina. And they say, man, I can do that. I'm going to go home and work for a winery, and then I want my own piece of land and blah, blah, blah. So that does happen still today. It's a wonderful aspect of the wine life.